Chief Rick Lasky. And Chief, let's talk leadership.
Oh, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you, brother. And I consider you a good friend and love what you do. And I love hearing all the positive feedback when I travel somewhere saying, we just had Frank here, or we got Frank coming, and God, he knocked it out of the park, or this and that. And just, because you and I, we travel enough to where once in a while you might follow someone that wasn't that way, and you hear about it. But you're doing some great stuff, brother. Hats off to you. A lot of great stuff going on.
I appreciate you saying that. What's really cool is I feel like I'm on tour with you, because everywhere I go, I hear the same thing. Either Chief Lasky was just here or he's coming.
Well, see, I pay him for that. When I leave, I pay him. I said, you got to say, when Frank gets here, say some nice stuff. So
no, believe me, I'm a fan of yours. So I'm going to talk about that as we go on, because Pride in Ownership, I've told you this personally, but it's my favorite book, fire service leadership book. And, and it really, it kind of paved the way for me personally, because, when I read that book, I thought, you know what, there's a lot of stuff that I believe in that's here. And there's a lot, I have a voice too, and I kind of want to share my voice as well. And I didn't know, quite honestly, if the fire service was going to listen to my voice, or if they were going to say, yeah, this guy doesn't really know what he's talking about. Because I've achieved success in areas of my life, but I sat here and I thought, well, this is something that I feel needs to be said. And you never know how people are going to respond to that. And I'm grateful that there's been a positive response. But you
really, real quick, your title grabs. I can't tell you how many times in my lifetime, and I've been traveling teaching for over 30 years, out of my 40-something years, that I'm always like, it's time to step up. It's time to step up and be an adult, step up, act your. I use the phrase "act your wage." Step up and act your wage. I did an article on it a while back. Step up. It's like step up, lead from the front, step up, and it's a perfect title because it grabs you. And you can apply it like you have to so many different areas, whether it's strictly team building, whether it's strictly mentoring, whether it's the whole leadership scenario, it works out wonderfully. So I feel bad because I really wanted to do, I know you'd asked me to consider doing the forward for the first one. And I couldn't. You know how it is when you get so jammed up, you're like, I got so much stuff going on, and you don't want to delay somebody's, especially their first book. They're so crazy fired up about it. So I apologize about that, but
no, don't even worry about that.
It's a great lead and a great title, buddy. It grabs you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's funny, for that book, I don't recall if I even had the title until I was near probably 3/4 done with it, because for me, it was about the content. And then all of a sudden, at some point, and this is how it works for me, a title just hits you and it sticks with you. Yeah. And that's what that one did for me. But I want to talk about you, Chief. I want to know a little bit about what it was like growing up, like what your childhood was like, and what led you to the fire service.
Well, led me to the fire service is kind of an easy answer. Is my dad. My dad just passed away this last Father's Day. I was with him, holding his hand. My dad, 88, a Marine, sergeant of Marines in Korea. I grew up in a firehouse. I can never not remember being in a firehouse. I always tell a story. I peed on my first fire chief. Dick Fashada was a captain with my dad, and my dad was assigned a 4th of July detail. And my mom went to look at some craft or something like that, some booth, and she handed me to my dad. And then my dad, they caught a run, so he handed me to then Captain Fashada, and anyway, Dick Fashada, Chief Fashada, I can't even call him Dick. Great man. He's got kids, right? And he knew I needed to be changed. So, and you've got, especially with boys, when you go to change that diaper, if you don't cover up the smoothbore nozzle, you're going to get nailed right in the chest. And I nailed him. So leap forward a lot of years, and we're getting sworn in, and he pins my badge on me. He reaches over, shakes my hand. He leans forward. He goes, Lasky, you pissed on me once. Don't think you're going to do it again. I said, Chief, trust me, I'm not going to do it again. But for me, I fell in love with it early, dude. I did. My dad, I couldn't get enough of the fire service, and then I was stuck between watching Adam 12, wanting to be Jim Reed from Adam 12, or wanting to be my friend Randy Mantooth, Johnny Gage from Emergency. And I remember getting in trouble in 5th grade, Mrs. Humphrey's class. Wonderful teacher, the ones that you never remember to thank for making a difference in life till they're gone.
Yeah.
She looked like the crypt keeper, but she was wonderful. I got sent to the principal's office because and I have it sitting on my desk here still today. I brought in it was the first pocket 4-channel crystal scanner ever made. It was one made by Radio Shack, a realistic. I have it sitting here, and I had it in my desk. And remember the metal desk with the wood lid, and it's quiet time. We're supposed to. All of a sudden, from my desk, you hear. And she's like, "What is that?" And you hear the Range Fire Department report at the house fire. I'm like, so they call my dad. My dad's like, was he in a fight? Did he bring a knife to? She goes, no, he brought. She goes, oh, tell him to turn it off. So anyway, it was my dad. My dad got me involved in the fire service, and I got to go to calls with him. I got to watch my old man fight fires. My dad was a roofer. I was a roofer, so that makes us both truckies. And I got to watch my dad. I watched my dad make a rescue at a nursing home. I was roofing with him as a little kid, and he comes off the roof. This is when they brought their gear home with them. He goes, "Come on, we got to go." Colonial Manor Nursing Home. We're on 9th Avenue, and we're like 2 blocks from there. We pull up. There's fire out the first floor, smoke out the second floor, and they're all yelling about some old lady on the second floor. And he throws. I've got a picture of my brother. Talk about him in a second. Wearing my dad's leather helmet, boots when he was little. My dad throws that leather helmet on, coat, truckman's belt, which is like synonymous with Chicago Fire Department. His boots, throws a roof. I can hear the sirens. I can hear the Q sirens, but he throws a roofing ladder up there, climbs up there, disappears in the smoke with, by the way, a cigar in his mouth, for which he said used to filter out the smoke. So he climbs in, comes out, seemed like an hour, comes out seconds later with this old lady, Frank, over his shoulders like a bundle of roofing shingles, and carries her down. And see, the fire service to Rick before that was all about the red light, sirens, and bells, right? Remember when you were a kid and the fires would go down the street and the ground would almost vibrate and all that? Mm-hmm. But it changed for me, buddy, that moment, because I'm like, that's my daddy, man. It was still the excitement about the sirens and the bells and the horns, but that was my daddy. So, buddy, I was hooked. I was hooked from that point forward.
That's great. We have similar story in that aspect of with my dad being a firefighter as well. And see, we lived out on a relatively busy street, but we lived just 3 houses in from one of the busier streets in town. And you couldn't go through the intersection. You went down, you had to turn right or left. So of course we lived right on the street that our fire station was on. So the fire engine would come down and blast the siren as loud as it can right in front of our house every time to let everybody know they're turning right or left. So we'd always run to the window, me and my brother, and look out and see what's going on. Like we're going to see the fire right there. So it was fun. And you said your brother, was your brother a firefighter?
No, my brother passed away when he was 9. My brother, the reason I'm where I'm at today is for a couple people. My brother was 8. I was 12. He got diagnosed with inoperable brain tumor. He'd be alive today with medical science. Anyway, long story short, he ended up sick, and he ended up he was supposed to live for 3 months, lived for 18. We shared the same bedroom obviously in Chicago, and he woke up having a nightmare saying Ricky Dolan and put me in a wooden box, me in the coffin, and he didn't know he was sick. He thought he needed glasses because he was getting blurred vision, and I panicked. There weren't counselors back then, and instead of staying home with him every second I could, I stayed away every second I could, which I know I'm supposed to forgive myself, but it still haunts me till today. And I started hanging out with firefighters' kids that were, from my dad's firehouse. They were older than me, and I do a leadership program, Building Tomorrow's Leaders and Successors, and one of the segments I do is for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and I talk about this for the next 2-3 years. I went on a rampage with them. We broke into houses, we burglarized houses, we stole cars, we did all kinds of. I had handcuffs put on me. I can't tell how many times, and finally a cop named Frank Sinicki, he's passed on now, but a dispatcher. Joni told him whenever all the other cops had given up on me, the little scumbag kid, she said, I think he's a good kid. He just needs someone around him. Because when my brother got sick, my parents split. My dad had a hard time, God bless him, and a drinking problem with, when you lose a child. And so anyway, I remember him bringing me to the station. I'm handcuffed. What was I? Almost 15 years old. And he brings me in and he throws the handcuffs down the table. He goes, sit down, and he turns around and yells at me. Now, typical Chicago or New Jersey ease, he starts dropping the F-bomb a bunch of times. And he says, the only way I'm going to keep you from going to effing jail is by making you a police cadet. And I go, I don't think so. I'm going to be a firefighter. He goes, no, I don't think you understand. we're starting this new program with the Boy Scouts called the Explorers. Monday night, 6 p.m. is their first. I need a uniform size. I said, no, I'm not. You don't do this. You go to the Audi home right now. So I said, all right, here are my sizes. I'll see you Monday night. And aside from a couple minor scrapes, kids getting fights in school and stuff, I never got in trouble again. And became an Explorer when I was 15, both police and fire. And that was it. And I always talk about my brother being my guardian angel, that things happen for a reason. And I always talk about, you got to put your hands in the manure before you get to the rose, right? In the rose garden. And, he sent me a lesson that took me for the rest of my life, but, and he would have probably been, Frank, a million times better at anything in life than I ever was. He wanted to be a firefighter too, but as smart as he was, he would have been like a scientist or a doctor or something. But that, my dad and just, he got me rolling, man. He got me into it. And I've never looked back. I was a cop for a while, but I mean, that wasn't his fault. So.
Yeah. Well, my brother did the same thing. He started out as a police officer, and then they came calling for the fire department. And
it was one of those weird things. I'm in high school, and I was obviously a jock playing all the sports, and I was a catcher, and I made a mistake. I turned down a full ride at University of Missouri to go play catcher, to go play with the Chicago White Sox. Dave Dombrowski, who was the GM for Boston and the Marlins, he was the farm system. All my paperwork is signed by Dave. He was the farm system administrator. And so I did that, which I shouldn't have. Should have went to school first. And Ron Kittle was my good friend. He's with the White Sox, big PR guy, was a big ball player. I'd never been out of Chicago. I'd never been on an airplane. And I got on a plane, and right away we met, and we ended up rooming together, and he just took care of me. So I was always playing catch up. In Illinois, you got to be 21 to be a career firefighter police officer. So in between seasons, I went to paramedic school, and I went to police academy. And while I was waiting to get hired as a full-time firefighter paramedic, they hired me as a cop. And I tell people, Frank, I wasn't very good as a cop, because my first year I got shot, stabbed, and burned. And my FTO says, Lasky, you suck so bad you got shot through the windows of the police station. Another story for another time. But obviously I'm very partial to law enforcement and to dispatch. But things, like I said, everything happens for a reason.
Well, no doubt. And I actually love your story, because it just shows that people deserve that second chance. And adversity happens in all of our lives.
Well, and Frank, I've got a picture real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go.
In my PowerPoint presentation, like we use them as, they're like accents. We don't peep people together with PowerPoint, but there's a picture. It's a black and white photo from that, for all those police officers, all the big white shirts and detectives and row. And I point to the picture when I do a lot of classes for law enforcement, and especially them, because they forget the impact they have on people, because it's hard after a while, when people always hating you. And I'm going, okay, that guy arrested me for driving out my driver's license twice. That guy arrested me for burglary. That guy was for stealing a car. That guy arrested me for climbing up the water tower and painting on it. That guy arrested me for breaking into a box. I go through this whole thing, and there's a big red arrow pointing to this guy in the back, and I have the word saved above it. And I said, that guy back there, Frank Sinicki, that young, brand new cop, if it wasn't for him, a lot of people take saved back to the church. I guess in a roundabout way, that's what he did for me, because, and there was a lesson there. So, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. Who knows what I'd be doing?
It's awesome. It's an awesome story. And most of my friends and people that even follow me through the books and stuff know that I also have a passion for coaching. That's the exact reason why. Because somebody asked me the other day, I was about a month ago, I have a travel team, and we had a kid that was whose parents were contemplating coming over to our team, and we had a conversation, and she talked to me about what I can do for her son that he maybe wasn't getting out somewhere else. And I said, listen, here's the reality. I want your son to be successful, but here's the reality. I'll have no idea if I'm successful at achieving that until 20 years down the road. That's what my focus is. So am I focused on making him a better baseball player? Absolutely. That's why I'm here. But I want him to have integrity, grit. I want him to have all the qualities and traits he's going to need to be successful in life. Because for me, it's transferable. If I can teach my kids and young kids, like you spend time with the Explorers, and as do I, but if we can,
coached girls softball for a long time.
Yeah, right. And your daughter was very successful, right? She played for quite a bit.
D1 player, state champion, Texas 5A. She did great.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And we had a conversation about this a while ago. The one thing that was pretty cool about the COVID in 2020 was, although it shut down, I mean, I probably lost 20 speaking engagements with travel included. That's 40 more times that I'm home that I wouldn't have been. Well, those 40 times I was home and all the other times, what were we doing? We were going down and playing baseball, me and my boys.
Well, and let me ask you, is it bad of me, Frank? My granddaughter's not even a year old, and this was her first Christmas, and I bought her a little tea set, so we can work off the tee, right? Because baseball players, softball players do more tee work than they do in the cage. So
absolutely,
I have to prop her up in my lap on the floor and help her hold the little bat. And we're working on driving. We're working on driving straight through. So, she's only 9 months, or 10 months, or 7. I'm sorry, 9. So we'll get her there. But anyway,
it's never too early. It's never too early. So you have a great career in the fire service. Pride and ownership.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, I love the book. I love the title.
Thank you.
Now, where did it come from? Was this something that you said, first of all, just the package overall? I mean, did you say, hey, I want to write this book, or was just something that you believed in and you were kind of piecing together as you were going through your journey in the fire service?
It was pieced together, but there was never a program. It's kind of funny about this where, like you, I've got a ton of programs. Pride and ownership, I always tell people, happened on accident. There was no pride and ownership. It was a rant I had. And so it was me getting on my soapbox about just people not loving it. This is the coolest job in the world. Volunteer career, it is the coolest thing in the world.
Yep.
How could you be miserable? Look, we all have our bad days, weeks, even months. I've been there. But how can you be miserable doing the little kids want to be you? When Toys R Us was in business, there was a whole aisle full of toys dedicated to us. No disrespect, but there wasn't a whole aisle full of UPS trucks. It wasn't like, hey, Frank, I play delivery truck driver. They want to be, they run to the curb to see the fire. They point to two things, the ice cream truck and the fire truck. They don't point to the delivery truck, and it drove me nuts that there were people that could treat this fire service thing like crap. And anyway, so back for when I've been with fire engineering since 1995. Bill Manning gave me my start as editorial advisor since then, reviewing articles and that. And when Pennwell bought FDIC 96, I've been on the advisory board since then. And when we're picking classes and keynote speakers and award winners and all the different things, that's what we do in those. It's an honor to be part of that group. And like I said, I've been doing it since 96. And so Peter Hodge, remember Peter, Jersey guy,
yeah.
he was running FDIC at the time. And he calls me and he says, hey, Billy wants to know if you do the opening keynote at Indy, this year in April, in February. This year, because they were remodeling the convention, it was February of 2001, obviously before 9/11. And I said, well, yeah, I'm a good soldier. What's he want me to do it on? He goes, he wants you to do it on that ding you do, because you Jersey guys don't say ding, you say ding, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, or you say add R to everything. I have an idea. I always tease you, I got an idea. And they tease me about being from Chicago and my accent, but anyway, so I said, all right, I'm a good soldier. What's he doing? He goes, he wants you doing that thing you do. So he goes, when you get your soapbox, you bitch about people who don't care about the job, and chiefs that don't care about their people, and company owners don't train their guys, and firefighters just there for the t-shirt, the pager, or the paycheck. And I went, Pete, they don't want to listen to an Italian Polak from Chicago, which I always say I'm Italian Polish, which means I have a real bad temper. I forget what I'm mad at. But they don't want to listen to me get up there and bitch and complain. He goes, no, we need it. He goes, we've lost our toehold on the traditions of fire service. We don't talk shop anymore. We don't hang the pictures on the walls. You walk in the firehouse, you see the black and white photos, a guy standing next to the rigs, and fire chiefs are scrubbing the walls sterile, and people don't take pictures. I said, okay, I'll do it. He goes, but here's the catch. He goes, I know all your keynotes are off the cuff of the heart. You're right. I've never written a keynote down except for this. I've never, hey, will you come to our banquet? All right. I may write a couple notes on a napkin while they're talking, but I've never done it. It's just me. He says, you got to write down. We have, there's almost 5,000 people out there. There's the teleprompters. We have tell Linda, the teleprompter lady in the back. And so on the airplane, Frank, I wrote something down. This is what I thought about, pride and ownership. And I handed her to that morning. And I tell people, if you watch the video, it's kind of funny because when Bill introduced me, I walked out, and you and I are both not podium people unless we have to, let's stay there. where we tend to wander and engage. You're very engaging with your audience. It's one of the reasons they love you so much. But so I walked out and I read the first 3 lines off the teleprompters and I walked away. And the first thing all the video people said, "Oh crap, we got a walker." Now they had to put their lattes down and their tea and actually film me. And I forgot what I said. People came up after. I said, "What? I know this. I had to apologize to 3 people. I had to write letters of apology. Diane made me do it. Diane Rothschild. I had to write a letter to Walmart, Sears, and Subway because there's one point I get to the end of the stage. I'm going, if you don't love this job and if you're not willing to take care of your brothers and sisters, then get the hell out. Go work at Walmart. You can stock shelves all day for $5 and go home at 5 and not give a damn about the job." Everybody stood up and cheered. So I had to write a letter to Walmart saying, "I'm so sorry. We shop there all the time. You're a great store. You take care of your employees. I'm so sorry."
Wow.
But that was it. There was never. So that was pride and ownership. And then, everything kind of broke down, into topics, which became a program. And I didn't want to do the book. I actually refused to do the book. I said, I'm not doing a book on it. And another story behind that. But anyway, I said, I'm not going to do it. Well, and Jerry Nalis, another Jersey guy.
I know Jerry.
And a fellow Mason, when he took over books, he called me right away. The moment it wasn't even announced he was taking over, he says, I'm asking you, I'm going to call the brother card on you with the Mason thing. We're both Masons. And I said, okay. So we did the book. And, I had actually done the whole 12-month part series the year before that, because I said, I'll do this series with the magazine, but I'm not doing it. And I'll tell you real quick. The reason I wasn't going to do the book is I was supposed to do another book with him. I had a contract, and another guy doing books let someone else took my program, and published a book, used my lesson plan as this is what I want to do it on, just whited out my name. And I was pretty upset about it. And I got an apology letter, but that's all water under the bridge. And I always say, like you say, things happen for a reason. I don't think pride and ownership would have came about if that had to happen. So I actually need to thank that guy next time I see him. yeah,
maybe sometimes
it was an accident, but it was all an accident.
You said how about they weren't putting pictures up in a firehouse and things like that anymore. It's interesting you say that because, and I'm sure you do the same thing, but when I travel and I walk into a fire station for the first time, you could tell if they have pride. Right immediately, you can tell. And one of the things you talk about in your book that's been a topic of conversation a few different times was that each company should have or design their own logo because of it's something to be proud of. Yeah. I love that idea. And somebody once said to me, yeah, but we're all part of one team. I said, I understand that. But if you're on a football team, the defense needs to have pride in the defense, just like the offense has to have pride in the offense. And both of them have to think that they're there to win the game.
Frank, how many classes I know you do classes for the military as well.
Yeah.
Don't every different section within the Army has their own patch, has their own, my good friend, Bruce Crandall, for your listeners, if you're a fan of We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, Bruce Crandall was Snake. He's the helicopter pilot. And we met, it was just a chance thing. I don't know if I have time to tell you the story. It's like a quick story, but it became friends. He's a Medal of Honor recipient, but he had his Snake logo on the side of his Huey helicopter. And he made all those runs back and forth, being shot up and everything else. And every time he would land to take over a new helicopter, bringing the dead and wounded back and bringing fresh troops and ammunition, he wouldn't leave till they took the doors with his Snake logos, all shot up doors. They would take his doors off and put them on another helicopter he would take off.
Wow.
And he always taught, he goes, that's how passionate he was about his logo, his pride. So they're taking shot up doors off one helicopter, slinging them on the other one he's taking off.
And by the way, just to talk about him for a minute, what an unbelievable mission that he had.
Well, and if I can, so I don't get giddy like you. I don't get giddy over a lot of people. People know I'm friends with Travolta. I helped him with Ladder 49's, been to my Firehouse a bunch of times. And I got a lot of NHL buddies, a lot of baseball players like you do that, it is what it is. You're like, they're great people, they're friends. But I got giddy over 2 people in my life. Charlie Pride, who just passed away. I love that man. And Bruce Crandall. So I'm on my way to teach a class at 29 Palms for the Marines out in California. And I'm reading the American Airlines magazine, Frank, and they're talking about the honor flight they do for the Medal of Honor recipients every year.
Yep.
You know how it is when somebody receives the Medal of Honor, they bring about 10 of the old heads there to the White House reception, and they each take a time talking about passing along their advice, about values. And I'm reading this article. There's Bruce Crandall in his suit and tie with his Stetson, and he's telling the, oh God, was it Kyle Carr? I'm trying to think of this sergeant that was just received his medal. Anyway, he's telling them, and they're talking about what he's telling them, about values in your life and how you lead your life. And at one point he says, he's talking about, like you do, what you need as your tenets or your principles, your foundation, core values are everything. Without integrity, nothing else matters. And he's talking about representation. And he says, that's pretty incredible. What you did to earn that medal is pretty incredible. He says, do you know which medal is harder to earn than that one? And I'm thinking, well, it's the Medal of Honor. What do you mean? What are you talking about? And he flips his lapel over his suitcase over, Frank, and he's got a good conduct medal. He says right there, he goes, that's 3 years of perfection. That was just 3 years. That one's the rest of your life. You represent. And he went through, and I was like, and this is, I forgot you could take they want you to take the magazine. I ripped the page off like I was sneaking out there. I get there, I'm changing my PowerPoint. So the next day I got the Marines and some sailors. My son was actually stationed there at the time. And I go, how Marines, I love them. But I'm like, okay, I know this is a soldier. Beat me up now. So I'm explaining, I'm talking about. So anyway, I do the whole story. I use that picture. So 2 days later, I fly up to Seattle to do a program. I'm leaving Sunday morning at SeaTac. And I'm waiting to get on the plane, up there, with the first group. And I look over, Frank, and this guy walks up next to me, and it's Bruce Crandall. And he's got this little dog, Huey, a little service dog, and he's got his Stetson. I call my wife. I go, and I swear to God, I'm like out of my, I go, honey, she goes, what's wrong? I said, Bruce Crandall just walked. Bruce Crandall, I'm talking about Bruce Crandall. I was just like, she goes, calm down, you look like an ass. I go, no, it's Bruce Crandall. Oh my God. I am going to climb, they're putting him on a plane. I'm going to climb over seats to get to him. Oh my God, this is like, she goes, calm down, take a breath. I go, I am. So I get on a plane, Frank. I turn the corner, right? I'm sitting in 6B. He's sitting right next to me.
Oh, you can't beat it.
And you remember Chris Farley when he would do the Chris Farley show, and he's like, with Paul McCartney, you remember when you were with the Beatles?
Yeah.
That was awesome. I grabbed his hand, and I wouldn't let go. I said, Colonel Craig goes, Bruce. I said, no, sir, Colonel Craig. My name's Rick Lasky. I was at Firefighter. I said, sir, you wouldn't believe I just, and you remember when you were at the White House? You remember, and I'm doing this thing, and I go, do you remember when you said, what's most difficult to earn that medal is? And you took your lapel and you flipped it over, and it was the good kind of, I said, that way. He goes, you mean this one? He had it out on the airplane under his lapel.
That's awesome.
And Frank, we sat 4 hours. I sat like this, and he talked the entire time and told me things. I was in tears sometimes. He told me things I never heard about what went on. Just, and that was it. Became pen pals, friends, and he's a great man, and great leadership lesson there.
Well, I'll tell you, it is a great leadership lesson. I remember one time I had a delayed, and you travel a lot. This happens. Your flight gets delayed, canceled. Now you have to take a flight the next morning at 6 a.m. I was in one of those situations, and my wife was unhappy. I was unhappy because I wanted to get home that night before. But certainly the next morning I go to the airport, and it's an honor flight. Not the flight I'm on, but there's an honor flight that's right there. And I'm thinking this couldn't be a better experience for me to stand as they're coming down this line and thanking every one of them. But I want to tell you this because I know you're passionate about this. I'm passionate about this too. Anytime I see a veteran and my wife, we're having dinner at I say an Italian restaurant. It's a pizzeria, but when the pizza's really good, we're going to give it the title restaurant. So it's an Italian restaurant. There's a gentleman over there at the other table, and he's wearing a hat, served in the Navy. My dad served in the Navy. I go up and I say, sir, I just want to say thank you for your service. Have a quick conversation with him. I sit down, and my boys, 4 and 6 actually. And my boys, my older one says, Daddy, who is that? I said, I don't know. Why'd you shake his hand? I said, well, because that man's a veteran. And to the best of my ability, I explained what they mean to me and why I always shake their hands. So my youngest one at 4, Nicholas, says, can I shake his hand? I said, yeah. When we leave, we'll shake his hand again. And we did. Well, about maybe, and tell me this isn't cool. I'm speaking up at West Point, right? My wife calls me. She says, "You'd be so proud of Nicholas." Now he's 5 now.
Right.
I said, I am proud of Nicholas. She goes, "But you'd be real proud of what he just did." I said, "What did he do?" She says, "Well, we're walking down the aisle in a supermarket and he sees a man wearing a hat and recognizes he's a veteran. He walks right up to him without me saying a word. He walks right up to him, looks up and says, 'Sir,' reaches up and says, 'Thank you for your service.'" So the man shakes his hand, looks at my wife and says, "I don't know what you're doing to raise your boys, but you're doing something right." But the lesson there that I took away was I never told him to do it. I just did it and told him why I'm doing it. And it made me really start to think about, well, here I am. I'm a leader in the fire service. I'm a deputy chief in the fire service. I have to make sure that when I'm sitting at the kitchen table with these firefighters and young officers, that I'm setting the right example all the time. And that's because they're always watching. It's like I said to somebody the other day, I feel like being a leader in the fire service, I feel like you're kind of like a dad or a mom if you're a female, but these are my children. I don't treat them like children, but I treat them in a sense like they're my children, meaning I want to set the right example all the time. Is that the way you felt?
Oh, absolutely. And it's just, and we talk about this all the time in both of our, the programs we do is they're watching you. You said it, they're watching. You can't be firefighter Rick or Frank anymore. Every rung you climb on that ladder of responsibility brings with it just that much more responsibility and maturity. You can't tell the same jokes. You can't act the same way. You've got to mature, and not on a boo-boo, but fire service maturity. And they are watching you. And it's like, and you said something very important. It is parenting. And I used to say, we talk about the supervisor, manager, leader, and some people say, well, when you talk about supervision, well, I'm not their babysitter. I'm like, well, actually you are. I mean, we make the official title supervisor, but that's what you are. I mean, when you see somebody else's kids acting out, doing the wrong thing, whatever, just act, it's not very, you follow ugly kids home, you find ugly parents. I mean, you don't have to go very far to see where the source is. And it's the same thing in the fire service. You work for the buffoon, you work for the captain or lieutenant that doesn't want to train their people, doesn't give it, shows up last minute, doesn't care, sloppy uniform, which all the signs that just show you who they are, sometimes you breed more of them. You sleep with a dog, you get fleas kind of stuff. I mean, you're hoping that some of the other guys and gals are like rising above that. But I think a lot of the success a lot of people see in life, let's just talk selfishly to fire service, depends on who you worked for, who were your leaders, and what did you pick and take from them? Because we all take bits and pieces from everybody as we travel. I thank God I had Bill Allen for a lieutenant, because if I had this, I won't say his name, this other guy, I think I still would have been a better person. But oh my goodness, and I feel bad, Frank. You see it in class for the people that they walk up, they're like broken because they work for a bad boss. It's like it's when we see kids that were raised by bad parents, it's the same thing. Oh, I agree with you. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's huge.
And that happens a lot where, we have this unique perspective that I wish I had earlier in my career, when you do a lot of traveling and you go into these fire departments and you're always having lunch or dinner with a group of firefighters that have brought you out or want to spend time. And so you always hear all the good and the bad that's happened throughout the country. And so a lot of times what I was trying to bring back to my department was to say, hey, look, I have a perspective it's expanded greatly since before I started doing this. And I can tell you, the grass isn't greener. The grass isn't greener elsewhere. Matter of fact, any problem that you have, anyone that's listened to this podcast, any problem that you have at your firehouse, it's probably happening in 90% of the fire stations across the country.
Or it did 10 years ago, or it's going to happen. It's
right.
A gigantic circle, right?
Right. It's a circle. So it's not a question of thinking you have it bad. It's about what can we do to make it the best we can. So the first thing is this. Again, when I walk into a fire station and I see pictures on a wall that show pride, and I see that, and whatever it may be, some people have pictures of their classes of the new firefighters, or maybe they built a plaque and donated it, or whatever it may be, or maybe it's their current firefighters, show pride. And I see that, and whatever it may be, some people have pictures of their classes of the new firefighters, or maybe they built a plaque and donated it, or whatever it may be, or maybe it's their current firefighters. I just came back from Noblesville, Indiana, and in Noblesville, Indiana, Jody Monroe is a great artist. You've seen her work on social media, I'm sure. And I looked around. And I said, how many of your stations have paintings from Jody Monroe? Because her husband's a fire officer with that organization. And they said one. I said, I'd have them in all. She's part of the family. I'd have them in all, but because we have one in our station in New Jersey, you should have them all in Indiana, but have that pride. And you create that. And I think a lot of people don't understand this, is they don't understand that no one else is going to come in. We always go in and we rescue people. We save people. No one's going to come in and save your work environment. You have to do that.
Right.
Right.
Well, exactly. And take it a step further, because, we're both big believers on, if it looks, tastes, and smells like a firehouse, it probably is, if you get that. But I always told, I said, now that's the first step. The pictures and the logos are like, you stuck it on the rig or the front of the firehouse and you put a picture up. That's fine. Now take me on the floor. Show me your tools. Show me the stuff that you work with every day, that you go to different calls with. How, it's easy to go, okay, good. Now we put that up on the wall. That's, and you don't have to ever pay attention to it, but show me what you use every day. Show me the cab of your engine, your ladder. Are you keeping it clean? Are your tools kept? Are you wrapping them? Your gear. Show me, I mean, I had a mentor of mine tell me a long time ago, you could walk into a firehouse, and I do it now. And I wrote about it in our book. Chief Benny Crane, he's passed on for Chicago, told me, I would try to get to a department like the day before, just to sneak in and see who I'm dealing with. And he's like, Rick, you're wasting your time. I go, what do you mean, Chief? He goes, just get there 10 minutes earlier than you normally do. And I go, well, how do I know I'm dealing with real firefighters? Because there's pretend firefighters. They got the ball caps and all the stuff,
right?
But they're not real firefighters. He goes, no, walk in the apparatus bay. Stop, as soon as you walk in, stop, take a smell. There's a smell like a firehouse. He goes, you'll know what I mean by smell. He goes, walk over to the engine. He goes, is it filthy? Are the tools rusted? Open up only one compartment, tells you about the rest of the rig. Walk over, look at their hose bed. He goes, see how their hose beds are finished out. Does it look like the pumper threw up its hose? You ever pull up next to a pumper in an intersection and it looks like the pumper threw up its fire hose? He goes, walk over to the officer's seat. Look and see how he or she has the cab organized. He goes, there's officers that jump in the morning, hope stuff just magically jumps in their fingers. Look at their air pack straps. Look at their coat. Do they have their coat on the side? Do they have their radio strap over it, which means they have to put it on ahead of time like we should be? Look at their bunker pants. How they have rolled down. Do they have their hood pulled through their bootstrap? I go, what? He goes, where do you keep your hood? I go, through my bootstrap. He goes, why do you do that? I said, because the first thing I put on. He goes, are their boots facing the door? He goes, again, I'm not talking walk around a white glove inspect. He goes, take a smell. Does it smell like a firehouse? And he went on with a little more, and he has been so right. Like you said, you see these little, what do they call them, tells about people, little tells.
Yep.
You walk right now, I'm bouncing through firehouses in my head that I've been in that I'm like, I love going to.
Right.
I love seeing art. What do they put on the wall next? And what do they do? And they got motivational sayings, and not the phony, like the one I always just laugh, the courage one, the big motivational courage. And it's two firefighters with fog streams with a guy walking to the propane training tank. I'm like,
yeah.
No, like really, I mean, I'm talking, the family stuff, even pictures of their kids and their stuff and pub. I mean, just they hung up. The kids did a drawing. They actually hung it up on the bulletin board on the wall. And just, I don't know. God, you're so right with that. You can just tell right away if they're into the job.
Right.
Real quick, pride. I used to use this definition of my daughter's softball team, right? Like there's always all high schools have a mascot, right? So there's Lion Pride, Bobcat Pride, whatever. And Louisville, Texas, one of the oldest high schools north of of Dallas. They are the Louisville Fighting Farmers. Well, there hasn't been a couple 100,000 people. There hasn't been a farm there in like 1,000 years, but they're the Fighting Farmers, and everything's right. Farmer pride. So I'm coaching the varsity softball team, and we have little 5-minute little leadership talks, at the end of it, we can sit down, talk, beginning, after, and on the bucket. And one of them asked about the whole pride and ownership thing, about pride. And I stuck a saying up there. It's been around for a long time. I've used it for a long time. My pro about what is pride. And I just painted on the wall in the locker room, what is farmer pride? And we talk about it's something that's difficult to explain from the inside, looking out, the outside looking in. Pride is a personal commitment. It's not. There are no such thing, right, as proud teams. There's proud individuals, not the pride associated with arrogance, the pride associated with ownership. Proud individuals that make up awesome teams.
Yeah.
Well, pride is a personal commitment. It's what the difference between defines us between excellence and mediocrity. And basically, it's not about being better than someone else. It's about being better yourself, because there's always going to be someone smarter, faster, whatever. It's what are you doing? How many Frankfurt School classes are you going to? And how many programs, how many books you read? What are you doing training wise to make you better? You know what I'm saying? And it's a personal thing that you have to take on.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned earlier we were soldiers, and so let's talk about General Hal Moore for a moment. And he talks about leaders, principles of conduct in battle, and he talks about some great things, but he specifically talks about how you basically make decisions based off your instincts, and how we develop our instincts. And how do we develop our instincts? Well, it's what we read. It's our experiences. Life experiences is the foundation of it. So when we talk about things like situational awareness, well, I don't have the same situational awareness or the same instincts as Rick Lasky. And I could be working with 5 firefighters that I've worked with for 2 years straight, but we're going to have different perspective on things, right? But that instinct now is shaped by not just our experiences, but like you said, what we read, the classes we take, the education that we go above and beyond for, and that is all packaged into that company pride too. What are you doing to make this group better? Everybody plays a role, just like every teammate on any team plays a role.
Oh, exactly. We see it. Everybody out there sees it, unless you're walking with blinders on.
Right.
In life, you see what your Firehouse. And my thing is, when we show up, how do you want to look? Do you want to look like, the village idiots getting off there? I mean, how's your rig look? How's your Firehouse look? How's your uniform look? How do you represent yourself? When you get off, are you ready to do battle? Are you dressed, turnout gear, tools, ready to go do, I mean, all you got to do, I love YouTube. I know you do too, but all you got to do is go to YouTube and you can see some very embarrassing moments with some people obviously have, number one, it's all about leadership, poor leaders, and they don't train. You can see it how they stretch hose, or I should say how they don't stretch hose in some cases. It's very easy to see it. You and I, being involved in sports, I think we appeal to the competitiveness of it, not the stupid competitiveness, but I don't want to be picked last. I was never picked last. In all the sports, I was never ever picked last. When I show up at a fire, I want the chief to say, Lasky, no, you say, all right, Lasky, bring your crew, come up here. And I've had to do that. I've done it where I've turned around and said, come on. We had a couple kids, 4 and a 6-year-old in a building, and we had to do a quick veteran search. And I turned around, I had 3 captains standing there with their crews. One of them was like this, big eyeballs. The other one I wouldn't let walk my dog. Okay. He refuses to train. He sleeps in a recliner all day long. And the other was my union president, Calvin Al. Man, I said, Cal, and I need to get Calvin out of my mouth. He goes, I'm all over it, boss. And he went, but 2 kids come flying out, bellies out as it flashes. And I don't want to be picked last. I want people to go, well, look at that team. Look at those guys. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You want to create the atmosphere. Who wants to play for the last place baseball team? Nobody. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people are attracted to wanting to be with those that are successful. I think most of them are, and those that are doing good things. I mean, like I said, who wants to be with the band of misfits kind of running around just kind of hoping things happen for a reason? So.
Right. And everybody plays a role in creating that winning environment for sure. A word that popped up earlier was culture. And I find it really interesting because I've been out to the Dallas area quite a bit. Addison, Flower Mound. I can tell you this, every time I go out there, I say, how far is Hard 8 from here? Because we're going to Hard 8 for some lunch. But what a great barbecue out there. But here's what I want to talk about with Texas. When I go out to Texas, there is a sense of pride that firefighters have, but more importantly, there's a sense of respect that the public gives the firefighters. And I'll tell this story We go to lunch. It's me and probably about 7 firefighters. I was actually out in Addison with Chief David Jones, who's a great chief, great guy, great friend. But a group of us had gone out to lunch. And as we're having lunch, a man walks over to the table, and it was a Mexican restaurant. A man walks over and he hands the only guy with the white shirt at the table, one of the chief officers, he hands him an envelope and says, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for your service." And the chief says, "Thank you." And the guy walks out the door. He never opens the envelope. They take the envelope and they pass it all the way down to me, the only guy that's not dressed in a firefighter outfit. Here I am in a suit. And I go, "What's this?" They said, "Open it." I open it up, and it's actually a gift card for that restaurant. And I thought, did that guy just pay for this meal? They said, "No, you're paying for the meal right now." I said, that's remarkable. I said, because there's a time, and there's some states that if you go out with a group of firefighters in uniform and you're having lunch, you won't get someone paying for your meal. What you're going to get is somebody saying, "Well, there's my taxpayer dollars hard at work. Thank you for nothing." Especially in the Northeast, we do have some of that happens. And sometimes it's tongue in cheek. But what I took away from that is I thought, well, that's pretty remarkable, because I know how the majority of people would treat a group of Navy SEALs, like, "Hey, thank you for your service," just as an example. But when I see the way that they treat firefighters out in Texas, at least from my experience, and that's what I want to talk to you about, is it really like this, or did I just have an unusual experience? But in my experience, I thought it's pretty impressive.
I'll say this selfishly, being born and raised in the South Side of Chicago, and being down here in Texas now since 2000, there is that whole Texas sense of pride, the Lone Star State, and they always remind you that we're a republic, we can succeed anytime we want, and all this stuff. And anybody north of the Red River, which is our border, Oklahoma, is a Yankee. And I think I was allowed to come in here. They were at their Yankee quota already, but yeah, there is a lot of that. There is a lot of that, and I won't say in an arrogant way. There's a lot of heart, like there, but I'm sitting here as you're saying that, I'm going, but God, you and I, we've been to so many places where I've met people just like the people live here in Texas. You know what I'm saying? And,
yeah.
And I've been places. Now, there's always going to be that person that comes up and says, "There's my tax dollars." In the grocery store. "Oh, sure, but Sunday night that my tax dollars are going to pay for your groceries." So, "No, ma'am, they don't. We pay for our own." "Really?" "Yeah, we have to eat too. We're at the fires for 24 hours. And, how do we go grocery shopping for 5 or 7 guys the day before? We're still in service. We still go to our calls. In fact, we're even faster because we're out the door." "Oh, I didn't know that," because I think we do a very, very, very poor job of marketing the fire service. We just expect people to go, "There's the heroes." We don't explain to them why we go to the grocery store. We don't explain to them why we send a fire engine with an ambulance, because it's about patient, quality care. We don't explain a lot of those things. I always say this real quick. Butte County, you've seen this video. I say it every time I can, because I did an article about going to the grocery store. Every firefighter, every officer, every rookie, every chief should watch the video footage. If you remember when the guy was tearing into the officer from Butte County about being at the grocery store.
Yep.
And the professionalism.
He was fantastic.
Oh,
fantastic.
Exactly. And everybody should watch that. And the guy wasn't mad that they were at the grocery store. He wasn't mad that he thought they passed another one, because he had already tore into another engine he saw. He was mad because they raised his fire tax. That was the whole bottom line behind it.
Right.
But I think you're gonna run into those people all over the place. I know in Idaho, I spent my time there as chief. In Idaho, they love their firefighters. I know they, I think it's like anywhere else, Frank. When you live somewhere for a while, sometimes you take things for granted. The edge wears off, and you go,
yeah.
And then you go a place, you go, wow. But I've been to New York how many times. My best friend John. So I've been to Jersey, and I know how protective people are of their firefighters. Their volunteers, oh my God, they're so protective of the volunteer fire companies, and people show up at every fundraiser to help support their volunteers and things. And so, yeah, I think there is a lot of the Texas pride here, but like you, I see it all over the country, and it's. I think there's a lot of people that support it, but it is cool.
Listen, it is very cool. I know we are always on that list of respected professions. Fire service is always up there. And that's something worth talking about, because here we are in a society today that and I blame social media and the media in general for this, really, but people are being less tolerant of opposing point of views. It's
Right.
my way. And people, it seems like people don't even want to hear the opposing point of view. Even when they listen to the news, it's the channel that they want to hear. And if you disagree with them, I always give the example of at every political election, take presidential elections, people don't post positive things about the candidate that they're supporting. They always post negative stuff and tell everybody that's supporting that person why they're an idiot for doing so. Right. And because of that, it seems like there's less tolerance for opposing points of view. And I'm trying to constantly remind firefighters that's not what we're about. We don't care about the race, the religion, or any of that stuff. We care about who's in trouble and what do I need to do to help. Because they're, like you said in your book, when people have their worst moment, we have to have our best. Their worst day is our best day.
Think about what that says about a profession, that we have to train to be our best when someone's at their worst. And, you know, I mean, there are people that call us out, you know, and they have fun and they bring their kids by for birthdays or things and all that stuff. But when our red lights and sirens are on, it's not because, you know, when we're responding somewhere, forget the parades, that we're not going there, you know, usually for like happy, joyous times. Somebody's sick, someone's house on fire, there's a problem, there's a gas leak, whatever. But you're right. It's all about, you know, what you're doing for the. I say this all the time about the whole public servant thing. The moment you screw the helmet to your head, you became a public servant. It's not about us; it's about them. And you mentioned about the whole disagreement thing. You know, the great late, God rest his soul, I love him, one of my mentors, Chief Tom Brennan, said a long time ago, and he wasn't the first one to say it. Why can't we agree to disagree? Why do I have to be wrong for you to be right? You know, why? You know, once in a while we just have to have. And you know, remember the great John Mittendorf. I love John, and we've done a lot of programs together. And I remember we used to do the whole ventilation. I'd do vertical, he would do PPV, and we'd go back and forth, and we'd have fun. But when we were done, you know, we're still buds, you know. And
Yep.
and I think sadly, Frank, we've lost a lot of that, where people are a lot of good people are afraid to say something because the bullies and the thugs are going to just pound them into the ground. And you know, and the moment you stand up, you get the crap beat out of you, you know, and it's sad to see that, you know.
Yeah, it is sad to see that. And I think what firefighters, I think we pretty much set the bar overall in society for respect, for camaraderie, for that brotherhood, sisterhood. But I don't want to see a generation of firefighters now down the line at any point come along and be the ones that forget that. To be the ones that maybe use social media and take that video you talked about earlier on YouTube, post it on social media, and start bashing the brothers or sisters in that video.
Does that make sense? Have you ever watched that? I'm like, why do you call yourself a brother or sister? Look, I have no problem saying, you know, I would rather really, you know, in light of the cancer awareness, I'd rather see them have their face pieces on sooner. I get that, but when you're calling them names and, you know, and cursing at them, and I'm like, really, what tattoo do you have on? What shirt are you wearing?
Right.
You know, and I just really if you can't say nothing. Now, we did a whole show once on the bullies and thugs and the Facebook firefighters. Those that really, you got a dumpster fire under your belt and you're tearing into them. You know, be constructive, not destructive, right?
Yeah, the keyboard commanders. I have a friend that works at a very busy department, and there was a awesome photo of him taken, but he's opening some windows up at a fire that, I mean, it's fully involved, and he doesn't have a tank on, and he just starts getting abused on social media. Not with people not knowing the story behind why he doesn't have a tank on, because there was an arsonist walking around lighting fires up for the past 24 hours, and they had no air left. All he's trying to do is vent, make access, and let them get some water on that fire. But he had a great comment though, because he said to one of the ones that commented negatively about him, he said, "Listen, son, I don't know how long you've been a firefighter, but I guarantee you that building has seen more fire than you have in your career." So,
What's the saying? I got more time waiting for water than you got in a firehouse.
yeah.
But and I actually used the picture in my book, not to keep going back to my book thing, but if you remember, Bill Manning was so tired of the every time you put a picture on the cover, he didn't have his left glove on. His hood wasn't around his ear, this, whatever. So if you remember the white cover, the white cover is a fire engineering. And if for those, you can Google it, or if you have a copy of my book, whatever, I talk about it. He said, here's your perfect Fireground. And it's a fire engineering, the only fire engineering cover that is totally blank except for the mast, fire engineering, there's no picture. It's a white cover. He goes, there you go. There's your perfect Fireground. Have at it. And I'm sure somebody was critical of the tactics and strategy used on a blank cover. There's somebody's going to make up something. Well, if there was a picture, they'd probably doing this wrong. It was like, really, I don't know how you can, put all the stickers on your car and all this stuff and just turn around and trash talk your so-called brothers and sisters. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I think that comes down to, again, the example that other people are setting. And I get this question quite often, and I'm actually curious if you get it, because I'm sure that you get a tremendous amount of people that just send you a random email and, hey, Chief, I read your book and I have a question. But and I think this is the question I receive the most, which is, I'm having challenges with someone I work with a negative attitude. Now, sometimes it's the boss or their direct supervisor or the chief. Sometimes it's the new firefighter or whatever it may be. So they can be anywhere in there. And they're always complaining about a negative attitude. And what can I do to deal with this? Do you get that question a lot?
Oh, I get it so much. And like you do, I get, God, the emails, and I probably get 2 or 3 a week that are the 10, 15 page long emails of this is going wrong. That being said, I actually I did an article, and I do a class on it called Firehouse Survival, Us Versus Them. And the article, they changed it, the editors, to Dealing with Him, because they didn't want to do Us Versus Them. But anyway, real quick, it was just a weird thing, Frank. The response I was sent to, I say, look what I pasted below. Take a look. It's worked for me. It's worked for the people. And if you looked at it, all 3 were broken into sections, and each section's centered around one word. And it just coincidentally, the words all started with the letter P. So I talk about the 3 Ps of surviving the firehouse: passion, perseverance, and patience. And I talk about, passion being the foundation for everything. Besides your core values, if you don't love what you do, you suck. You can't be great at anything you love to do. I won't even give you okay. And I don't want to be just okay. You can't be great at anything that you don't love to do. And then the perseverance and the patience and all that. But yeah, I get that all the time. How do I deal with either with a bad boss, someone who's not gay? The best advice I ever got, Frank, for one of my mentors a long time ago, because I would get frustrated with bosses who didn't care. I get frustrated with people that were with me, my rank, that didn't care, was worry about the things you can fix, not things you can't.
Yep.
We waste more positive energy on stuff we have no control over. Worry about yourself first. Make sure you're into the job. You're doing everything you can to project that positive image, and the people around you are seeing that, and the younger guys and gals are following your lead. And then you can start worrying about other people. But there's some people you're just not going to change. And we waste more time trying to fix stuff that we have no control over. And I think sometimes, you said it earlier, when you lead with that, Eddie Buchanan's leading with attitude, when you lead with that positive energy, when you lead with that when you live your life and they see you living a life with core values that mean something, like integrity, honor, and all, those different things, some people are going to draft off of that, and how about you be the best firefighter you can be? Be into the job. I worked for a god-awful, Frank. I worked for a god-awful, horrible, horrible, horrible fire chief that should be in jail for what he did. And I found myself for about 6 months letting him reach into my heart and steal my passion. And it took a mentor to slap me and say, Rick, you're letting a mutt reach into your heart and steal your passion for what you love to do. Stop that. That's being weak. You're being a weakling. And I'm like, no, you're being weak. You don't ever let anybody reach in your heart and steal your passion for what you love to do. Don't do that. And I'm like, well, how do I deal? So we talked about how you deal with that. I think that's the first thing, is to grab a hold of and wrestle back what you love. I think when you really are passionate, right? When you're passionate about something and you love it, you tend to fight off the knuckleheads and the nonsense. And you know what I'm saying? It's like when you're really tired, things bother you more, or you have a weak moment. If you're into the job, if you're into whatever it is you're doing, I think it makes it easier to deal with the mutts and the misfits out there. Some of them you're not going to change. So what you have to do is kind of organize your troops, right? Your people, your own troops, yourself going, okay, so what do I have to do to deal with this? I'm not going to show up and waste another day being miserable here, period. And I think that's sometimes the best way, what firefighter is going to change their chief as much as you think you might.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's virtually impossible to lead that far up the chain of command.
Or how about a guy on your shift rank that just doesn't care? And no matter what you do, real quick, I know we're limited on time, but we had Alan Brunacini, my surrogate godfather, on our show, and we were allowed the 3 hours of live time, but we were like 3 seconds running short. But I saw the phone number come up in the queue, and I'm texting John Salka, my partner. I'm going, oh God, did you see I'm like, I know what he's going to do. I know he's going to do. So finally I said, I know who it is. I said, who's got I'm just making up. Who's got the 940 area code? Who's with us? Oh, hey, Chief, I know. I say, hey, I'm blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I got a question for you, maybe Chief Brunacini. Chief, I'm a lieutenant on B shift, and my buddy's lieutenant C shift. Now, the lieutenant A shift, this guy, he's just not, he went out off this guy, and we've taken the breakfast, and we've tried to change him, and we've tried to coach him into being a better officer, and a guy, blah, blah, blah. And he goes and I'm going to John, here it comes. I'm texting him, here it comes. And he's going through this long thing of how he and his partner have been trying to change this other lieutenant. And finally he says, Chief Brunacini advice, and I'm going to do this without cursing. I'll do some abbreviations. Bruno says, what shift are you on? He goes, I'm on B shift. He goes, worry about your own GD shift. And it was silent. And I texted to John Salka, boom. I go, there it is. And Bruno goes, really? What? You're worried about this other guy? Worry about your shift first. Worry about, and then he brought it around. And I'm like, there's some people, you're hoping that maybe one day they'll fall off or whatever's pushing them to that, negative side. We'll suck them back into our Stephen Covey's, right? Positive circle. But
you're right there, because you're control what you can control. And also know this, that person's not going to be there forever. And I firmly believe, I know you do too, you could learn just as much from a bad, poor, or ineffective leader as you can from a good, credible, successful leader. You can learn what not to do.
Right. Exactly. And I say all the time, I always ask this class, who's it easier to learn from, a good boss or a bad boss? Think about your answer. From a bad boss. Look, you can learn from a good boss, how they wear their uniform, how they treat their subordinates, how they treat the public, how they treat the job, what time they show up, all those great things. But sometimes with good bosses, it's like peeling back an onion. You have to really, I say, you ever wonder why the shift just flew by or drill night just flew by? A lot of times that's due to a good boss, a great company officer, a chief that allows that to happen. But I tell people, I say, you want to know how to learn from a bad boss? Here's the easiest thing. Take your pad of paper, draw a line down the middle. All day long, with that pad of paper, your pen, follow this guy or gal around it. And everything they do, write down on the left-hand side. Oh, he called me a jerk. He did this. He did but we didn't train you. And then at the end of the day, draw an arrow on the right-hand side to that stuff and just put down, don't do that shit. And there you go. And seriously, you've been instead of complaining about working for a bad boss, it's a blessing. You have been blessed. There's not a college course that will provide you with the leadership lesson you're going to get working for a bad boss. So you know what? You look up at a guy and say, you're sneaky. I get this. You put me with him so I can learn. And that's it. Otherwise, we could all go, oh, woe is me. I got a bad lieutenant. You know what? Have your little pity party and go, you know what? This is a lesson. I'm gonna turn what he's doing around and make me a better boss.
And what's great is that you can find mentors. People choose their own mentors. I like to talk about a mentorship program where somebody's coming out to the fire department. I'll assign them a mentor for 6 months, but you can't assign somebody a mentor for life. People choose their own mentors. And you, for example, you have been a mentor to me long before I ever met you, because I read your book, I listen to your class, and I learn. And I say, and mentorship for me, you can have 25 mentors of people you want to emulate the way this person does that or that person does this. And if you don't have that strong leadership presence in your fire station to learn from, well, the information's still there. You just have to go seek it and then be that example for someone else.
Right. Bruno used to say, you can't poop up. He used to use the other word. You get, I'm sorry. So what happens? You have that bad boss, then someone else has to step up and be the good one, and we always talk about, right? You don't have to respect the person, but you must respect the rank. So you know what? I can't change that. What I can do is take all those valuable lessons I'm getting work for that person and make me better. And if you're a boss, you don't ever bitch down. You don't ever bitch, right? You don't ever, don't ever, 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 ever bitch down your people. You're the person with your hand on the morale crank or the morale siren
Yep.
crank. You're the one that should be right. You're the one that comes back. Cap, why do we do this? You know what? Let's not worry about that right now. Let's do this. Come on, we gotta have lunch. We're gonna do this here. And I used to leave. I'm sure you did. I used to leave City Hall going. I used to drive around for 45 minutes going, how am I going to sell this to my guys? Golly, man. Because it would have been so easy to go, I don't know, you know what they want back there.
Right, right. It's yeah, because you have to be the one that, you know, you're supporting the decision because it's coming from your organization, but you may not always believe in every decision.
Right? You follow orders. It's the same
Yep.
in Private Ryan. Why don't
Yep.
you ever bitch cat? Because I don't bitch down to you. I bitch up.
Yeah, grapes go up, not down. Yeah, what a great lesson. I call it negative up, positive down.
Yeah.
But well, I want to ask you this actually, because being an author, being a speaker, being a guy who served every position in the fire service, how do you deal with critics?
Kind of the same way before about worry about the things you fix, not things you can't. You know, I've been criticized as being too into the job. I've been criticized. You know, look, I always said I'm the most flexible fire chief I know. Don't lie or steal. You lie or steal, I'm done with you forever. Forever. Smash your rig up, have a dependency problem, we'll get you help, whatever. Lie or steal, I'm done with you. You know, violate someone's rights, that's always the biggie, but lie or steal, I'm done. But, you know, the critics, I've had people talk, you know, I've had chiefs get upset and throw out the DVDs, you know, of pride and ownership. That's just BS and all this stuff. And, you know, because I have no problem bashing chiefs because, you know, if you can't take it, then, you know, maybe you stood in the wrong line and you got promoted up beyond your capabilities. But first of all, I'm not perfect. I'm the least know-it-all, least egotistical person I know. I use the saying all the time, egos eat brains. You know, I get tired on social media. I see chiefs out there, and I will never, ever mention anybody by name. But I see these guys. I don't know how you can post a picture of yourself holding the award you got from the Kiwanis group that you just did a luncheon talk. They gave you the pencil kit that they give everybody. And you go, such an honor to be honored in the leadership. So honored and humbled. And we did a show on that once before. I've posted, hey, it was an honor to be made an honorary member of the such and such fire department. No problem. I think that's cool. But when you put the word humbled in there, yeah, you're putting your own picture of you. I don't. There's some guys that,
Yeah.
You know, it's been 4.5 years and 4.5 and 3 months and 7 days since I was made fire chief, and I'll tell you, I'm so thankful and blessed for all the people who have helped me through. I'm like, so I think some of them really have long arms. But that being said, I've never been one of them. I make fun of myself every day. I think there's people out there take themselves way too seriously. Nobody's perfect. You know, I've never done well with pompous people, and I like hanging out with regular people. What I mean by that is those that are grounded. You know, yourself, yeah. Salka, Bob. You know, our circle of friends. That's like, yeah, you know, we're just when people say, Chief, you know, excuse me, thank you so much, and you're like, dude, I'm just a firefighter. Loves what I do, right? You're
yep.
All about the passion. I love what I do, you know, and instead of all the other guys that they're doing more to pump up their own, you know, self-promotion banner than they are about sending a message out. But, you know, I think sometimes, Frank, you know, this, I think you probably teach about too. Sometimes you need to pay attention to critics because I think sometimes some of them are hateful. Some of them might be sending you little messages that maybe you need to back up a little bit and, you know, reset something or whatever that
yep.
maybe you are walking down the wrong path, or maybe you are coming across the wrong way. I've corrected a couple of things I do in my programs. I used to say something a certain way. I used to teach instructor one in the late 80s and early 90s. I used to teach people about trigger words, right? You know, when you say, I'll use an example. Well, once in a while you get caught saying something, simple things like not saying firemen anymore, saying firefighters. You know, it's 2021. There's been female firefighters in the fire service a long time, and some of our you and I's great friends, and they kick ass. I mean, they're just. I don't care who you are, where you come from, what color you are, what religion you are, what upbringing, what how tall you are, how short you are. If you've got passion, if you've got heart, you can work for me. You know, you and I grew up the same way. My high school yearbook picture looks like the League of Nations. If we didn't like you, it's because you were an asshole. It wasn't because of whatever. I had all different friends, you know what I'm saying? And I think we have to get back to that. It's just, you know what? A firefighter is a firefighter. Treat him like a firefighter. If you're a brother, you're a brother. If you're a sister, you're a sister. If we're a family, we're a family. But I do think sometimes the critics have a way of if you can separate those that are just being the haters versus those that you go, you know, it's like when you go to FDIC, Frank, right? When you're sitting down in the speaker ready room, you read your class reviews. Yeah. Oh, you know, five's great, great, great. Oh, great. Oh, we love him. Oh, he's the great, 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 great. Ooh, I got to look at this one, right? Some of them they're complaining about the room temperature or whatever, but once in a while you go, oh, I said that wrong. Or, oh, maybe I did, maybe I didn't read, you know what I'm saying? That's how
I do. Yeah. You're talking about those couple reviews you want to fold up and stick in your pocket, those reviews.
Yeah. But you know what? Those are the ones Salka says all the time. That's the first ones I look at.
Yeah.
See if there's any validity to it and what do I have to change. So,
No, actually, you covered it pretty well because that's how I look at it. You try to kind of tune a lot of it out, but this is what I say. Listen to what they say, but don't let it stop you from going where you're going.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there's all these different phrases about you get knocked down, get back up, whatever. If you wear your heart on your sleeve in the fire service, you stood in the wrong line. People are going to say things to you that are hurtful. The public, your bosses, people you work with. If you're a sensitive soul, work on that because you're going to be miserable with stomach aches and everything else because sometimes people aren't nice. As much as you want to think everything's Sesame Street and Blue's Clues, it's, be prepared for the real world. How many times have you seen that Rocky Balboa speech? He's telling his kid, life is hard. It's going to knock you down. It's true. I like to think there's more good people than bad. I think people have more good than bad. I think that's how you reason with everything, but lessons learned there, buddy.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that as well. Let me ask you this question. A while back, I had co-authored this article called 25 Things Every Probationary Firefighter Should Know and Do. And I had written it with Deputy Chief Mike Turpak, who you know.
Right.
And we listed these 25 things because this started with a conversation with him and I one day over a cup of coffee where we're sitting down talking about, I wish I knew this when I became a firefighter. And I said, we ought to write this article. And we just listed a bunch of things real quick and wrote this. What advice would you give a brand new firefighter, someone, their first day is tomorrow? And I've heard you give these speeches before, but what advice would you give a brand new firefighter whose first day is in the fire station? They don't know anything about the culture, what's expected of them. What would you say to them?
Well, coincidentally, I'm doing this again next week for Wichita Falls. I do the first day. I do our history. This should be day one of the Fire Academy. But the first thing I tell them is get into the job. Okay. The best way for a probie, rookie, recruit, whatever you call them, the best way to fit in is to do your job. The best way to do your job is fit in. Don't tell any stories. Be the kind of rookie firefighter that has to be ordered to take a break, and you'll take the break, but you won't sit down. Be the kind of rookie firefighter the other shifts are jealous of. They're like, oh, why do they always get the good ones? Why do be the rookie firefighter that the officers, maybe not in front of you all the time, kid, they're bragging about. You see the kid we got, man. She won't stop working, man. She's always, you know what? Well, where's she at? All right, go. She's on the floor, cleaning a tool, painting something, doing something. Be into the job. Get into the job. Love the job. Be passionate about what you do. I think passion drives everything, right? I said it before. Passion drives everything. Read something about this job every single day. You and I have been doing this a long time. I'm closing in on 44 years, if you count my explore. And I read stuff every day about this job. And I read stuff going, I never heard that before. Yep. I think when you start to read and believe your own newspaper clippings, you can kind of block out some good stuff coming in. Keep an open mind. Be a true brother. Be a true sister. Love this job. Remember, it's always about those people out there. It's always about them. You and I exist for the communities we serve. All those different things, Frank. Bottom line is, if you're in love with the job, if you're passionate about what you do, I think the rest of it comes easy.
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff comes easy. if you're into the job.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you mentioned, we're out there dealing with people's problems. And this is something that I am trying to really explain to people that are new firefighters is it's not their problem that you're out there solving. You've chosen to inherit their problem as your own. So when you show up on that call, again, they're having the worst day or moment of their life.
And Frank, right? Sorry, but it can be the most ridiculous thing in your head. Go, I cannot believe they called us for this, but it's the biggest thing going on in their life at the moment.
Right. Well, it's just like somebody else's trash or somebody else's treasure, right?
Exactly.
No, I get that. I totally understand that. Let me ask you this question now. What advice would you give a brand new officer?
Advice to a brand new officer, and I do this quite often, obviously, it's about your people. Take care of your people. Number one, take care of your people. You should already be passionate. All the things you talk about with the rookie, be passionate, be into the job, learn, be a student of the game, all those different things. It's about the public and all that. The moment you become an officer, we do one of our 3-day company officer academies. A guy came up not too long ago because we mentioned it over the 3 days. We're doing the diplomas at the end. We give our lapel pins and their graduation. And he came up and he leaned over. This is obviously before really big with the COVID. He leans over. He goes, "It was 57 times, Chief." I said, "What?" He goes, "You and Chief Salk over 3 days have said 57 times in different ways. It's about your people. It's always about your people. It's always about your guys. It's always about this. In the Marines, the newest Marine eats first. The commandant leads that. Your people eat first. They get the hot shower first. They're the ones that get this. If there's not enough food, they eat first. You figure out what you're gonna do for yourself. It's like a good parent. Your kids come first. The people come first. And I again, if you take everything we talked about as the rookie, the probie, that you should already have in your daily routine, and now now I'm in charge of people. If you take care of them, you're taking care of their families. You can't take care of their families without taking care of them. And that means you're training them, you're leading them, you're there early, you listen to them. All the things we teach in leadership programs. I think the most important thing to do is because we already said, hit those earlier things. It's about your people. Your people come first.
Yep. Your people. I love that. And I know you're big on this. I'm big on this too. A firefighter has 2 families, the one at home and that one at that station. And it's all. Home, yeah. No, go ahead. No,
I'll just say the first family, it's one of the chapters of my book. The first family went home, the second family went to the firehouse. So when you confuse the second family and the first family, you can end up with an ex-wife who lives in Texas with your son, the reason we moved here. So
yeah. Well, listen, and it's all about relationships. It really is. Leadership's about relationships, leading a team, dealing with our community. And I think we all need to remind ourselves constantly. I had a friend that used to say this. Imagine that every single person you're talking to has a sign around them that says, "Make me feel important." And I thought, that's pretty powerful. And this was a person, by the way, that I always felt better when I was in this guy's presence. He always made me feel good about myself. And that's what made me start asking questions like, what is it that you have that other people don't have? Because people gravitate towards you. And that's what he shared with me. And I thought, well, he does that because there's people that you'll spend time with that you love getting around, and there's people that you avoid.
Right.
And if you can be one of those people that people love being around, that means you're probably doing something right in how you're making them feel about themselves.
Exactly. Right on, brother.
Hey, listen, I don't want to hold you anymore, but I could talk to you forever.
Well, let's do this again. We'll do it again one day.
I would love to do it again. Let me just end with this. Is there anything that you want to share with us? I'm going to ask how people can get a hold of you. But is there anything else that you want to share before we go there?
First of all, before I even answer that part of it, Frank, absolute honor to be here with you, buddy. You know how much I love you, and love our relationship and your friendship, and
Same
love
here.
what you do, dude. You're making a huge difference, incredible difference in the fire service, as well as in corporate America with our military, because I know you're all over the place. But no, I'm a big believer in loving what you do. Be the best. You know what? If I could finish with this, the profession of being a firefighter, the professional firefighter, meaning volunteer or career, one gets paid, one doesn't. The position of firefighter is the coolest job in the world, man. It's the coolest thing you could do in the world. Remember that. Amen. Remember what people, how they react to you, what little kids think about you, seniors think about you, what you mean to the public. You know, if you're waiting for the compliments and the awards and the pats on the back, you're going to be waiting a long time. It's not about that. Reset. Remember, it's always about those people out there, and love the job with every ounce of energy and heart and passion you can.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And how can people get a hold of Rick Lasky?
I think two quick ways. First of all, I'm all over, like you, social media. Prideandownership.com, all spelled out. Prideandownership.com is one of the websites. Or just shoot me an email, Chief Lasky, Lasky, chieflasky@gmail.com. It's a quickie.
Excellent. Well, Chief, thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate you coming on. God bless, and you take care.
Frank, thank you. God bless you.